Welcome friends, welcome to another video. This time we'll be looking at Metaphys, a deck that actually got new support. Even though I'm going to say this is the first time this deck actually gets released in Circuit Break. It got two old cards, I think it's the Synchro Monster and the Vanilla Monster. But this time we're getting actual proper support where cards actually interact with each other in form of spells, field spells, trap cards and monsters. The deck's quite interesting. It revolves around banishing cards, and it reminds me a bit of Fire Kings, which all resolve in the standby phase, as in you destroy the cards and then next standby phase something summons or something searches, except Yaksha. But this deck sort of works in the standby phase if they are banished. So when you banish the cards, they actually do effects. One is the one that specs from hand. I think we're going to do that now. This one, Tyrant Dragon, it specs one from hand. One of them shuffles back to the deck and then searches. I forgot to mention that to activate the effect, it's actually you have to go to the deck, you have to shuffle them back to the deck to resolve the effect. And the Daedalus there, the one on the left, that one, when you shuffle it back, you banish another card. So it's basically another banish from the deck. They all have effects when they are spec using a Metaphys monster's effect. Daedalus, it banishes all monsters on the field. One of them pops a card or something, and one of them banishes all the back row. Nephthys, that's one. Their effects are reminiscent of their old counterparts, which are basically the original version. And the one that you can actually normal summon, the level 4, is this one in the middle of the field, which is called Ragnarok. It reminds me of the old card. I think it's the remake of the old vanilla dragon monster. They're all Wyrm monsters, by the way, so there's some generic support you can use for that. This is also a tuner monster, so you can synchro with that if you want, but I don't know why it's a tuner, honestly, because a lot of the monsters in this deck are quite high level. And when this one is summoned, you banish top 3 cards of your deck and it gains attack equal to the amount of Metaphys cards banished. So that's all the cards, so it includes all the trap cards and spell cards, so it doesn't matter if the monsters or not. And if you do banish a monster, you do trigger the effects of those cards as well. And nice thing about this deck is the spell and trap effects. The one on the left of the spell and trap card zone is a Asymmetaphys. It's basically a draw power card. You banish a Metaphys card in your hand, so that's quite nice because it's any Metaphys card, so you can banish a field spell or a trap card, more importantly monsters, to get an extra plus. You banish them from your hand to draw a card, and it has a mandatory effect where it makes monsters lose attack and defense on the field on your turn, and your opponent's turn it changes the battle position of cards, I believe, if I remember correctly. I might be wrong. The trap card is the one that's in the middle of the field right now. You can see on the right as well, Macrocosmos, because of course it's a banished top deck, so it's a really good banishing card. So Macro and Dim Fissure are highly recommended to this deck, and it also screws over a bunch of other decks. And the trap card, what it does, if your opponent special summons a monster while it's on the field, you spec a banished Metaphys monster. And also, if a card is banished, if the Metaphys card you control is banished, you can banish a card your opponent controls, which is really good in conjunction with the spell card, because you banish one from your hand and then it will banish a card in your opponent's side of the field. It reminds me a bit of Dark Magical Circle. And of course, the last effect of Ragnarok, I forgot to mention, is it specs one from the deck if it does battle damage. So it combos as well with its own effect, which is to gain attack. So that's what it's all about. And there's also the field spell, which I'll talk about in a bit. And let's see this other game. I think we're against DDs this time, and I do tech the Necroface in this deck because it's basically the same as Ragnarok when you banish it. This instead of normal summoning it. But when you normal summon this one, it recycles all your banished resources, which is quite nice because you use Pot of Desires and it gains a lot of attack. And this deck banished quite a lot, so it's quite good that you're recycling resources in this deck. Much like a Pot of Avarice for this deck, basically. Although you don't draw a card, but it gains attack, which is quite nice. Against DD, it's quite useful to open the Macro and Dim Fissure in turn 1, which is basically a floodgate for this deck. And we're just going to resolve a bunch of effects here in the graveyard. I do tech in the trap card to search any Wyrm monster, or you can also draw cards, although it doesn't work with Dim Fissure, with Macrocosmos. But it doesn't matter too much. It lets you discard one and then draw up to a amount of times you want, or search your deck for a Wyrm monster. So it's basically search usually Ragnarok, or it depends what you want to do. If you want to spec one from hand, you can search it. It's also a trap card, so it works quite well with the big dragon guy. As for the field spell, it's quite a good field spell as it lets you normal summon any Metaphys monster from your hand without tributing, a level 5 or higher one. So If you break without the Ragnarok, which is level 4, that you can actually just normal summon without the field spell, you can just normal summon it straight up from your hand, so it's quite useful. I would run a lot of free of that card because it's not, even if you draw multiples of it, you can use it to banish using Asymmetaphys, which is the continuous spell card. So you can just use it as a draw card anyway, and then it triggers off your trap card as well. So let's see what happens here. We're playing as like a random troll deck. It's quite an interesting game. It's actually the best game of the 3 games I actually play with this deck. We triggered off Nephthys there, which banished all your set cards, which is basically the same as Nephthys. Instead of destroying the ordinary Nephthys, you just instead of destroying, you banish them all. But it's only banishes face down though, which is could be bad because you want to banish face up sometimes, like in this case the major power. But we did have the Raigeki in this situation. And I forgot to mention, this deck has one more monster, which is why I do run one off. It's a bit inconsistent to get it off because you need cards in grave and field. I need to banish 5 Metaphys cards in field or grave, so that's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna banish 5, including the one on the field, which is the continuous spell. And we control less cards than your opponent on the field. You can spec one Metaphys banish monster. So that's what we did. We banished the Nephthys, but it gets banished at the next end phase or something like that. Similar to Ragnarok's effect, which is a spec from deck, but it gets banished next end phase, which is nice because in the next standby phase, you'll trigger it anyway to search a monster. So we summon another one, and when that guy's summoned, you banish more cards. You can see you just recycle your deck with a bunch of recycling cards like Necroface, because you end up banishing quite a lot of cards late game. It's quite useful doing that. So the stupid thing is they have a Greater Legal, which they took the boss monster. That's pretty big. And our guy got banished, which doesn't have an effect when it's banished. Fortunately, we got a Necroface to kill one of the tokens. But the boss monster doesn't have a protection effect. It can't be destroyed on the field, and it can't be banished either. So it's quite hard to out if you're playing against it in this deck. So the only way to get out of this situation is to just pop the Greater Legal, which means it will stay on the field. That's what we did. We just triggered the trap card to banish the Greater Legal, and then voila, we got the card in Necroface, banish the sub card of your decks, and then tap the game. That's it for the duels. So here's the build. We are running 3 of the Ragnarok. Obviously it's the main part of the deck. You want to start with this card because you banish 3 immediately. Basically similar to like a Raiden, for example, in Light Swans. 2 Necroface because it's at 2. I would run 3 if it wasn't, because the recycling effect is actually quite useful. It recycles all your Pot of Desires as well, all the stuff that I got banished, so it makes it even bigger. I only want Honest, mainly because if you run 3, you won't really be banishing that many cards, and it doesn't really work in conjunction with Macrocosmos and Dim Fissure. So you just want to have that 1 Honest just for your opponent to fade the 1 Honest to then attack into Ragnarok, because if this does do battle damage, your opponent will be probably scooping or something, because you could spec 1 Metaphys monster from the deck. 3 of each of the Metaphys guys, 3 Daedalus, 3 Nephthys, and 3 Tyrant Dragon. Tyrant Dragon's one of the least useful one, but it's still good because it's the biggest one of the lot, and it can attack twice, and it lets you spec from hand if it's banished, which is quite useful, but not as useful as Metaphys, which banishes all the set back rows, and this one also searches your deck. And this one usually, when you spec this one with the Metaphys effect, you get to banish all your opponent's, all the special monsters on the field, or other, so it will banish yours as well, just so if you are confused about that, you don't want to use that effect. It's an optional effect though, fortunately. It's a similar effect to the old Daedalus, which was out in the old water structure deck. And this one basically, if it's banished, you shuffle it back and you banish another card. So you banish usually Nephthys to search another card, or this guy if you want to spec one. And only 1 Executor. This is probably, it's obviously the worst one because it's the most inconsistent one to use. You have to banish 5 from your graveyard and face up on the field. So that's the bad bit about it, is you have to banish 5 from your graveyard or on the field. That's, unless you're already probably won by the time you could manage 5 from the field, and if they're in the graveyard, obviously not doing very well, or your opponent keeps on MST in your back row, so that's probably the only situation where we need him. You can obviously search him with the Nephthys, so you can add him if you have more than 5 cards in your field or grave of Metaphys cards, so exactly 5 I mean, you can just do that, and you'll have less cards. You can use this effect to spec a banished monster, which is probably going to be your Metaphys cards in the grave that was got banished using its effect to summon it. As for the spell lineup, 2 Desires, because it works with Necroface quite nicely, 1 Trade-in. You can run 1 Trade-in, but because you got 6 level 8s, but I prefer this one, which is Sacred Swords of 7 stars, which banishes this one. So that's really good because it's basically a +1. Reminds me of the old Dragon Ruler era, because you get a +1 every time you resolve this card. It's also hard once per turn, so you only run 1 card. And it's only 3 targets anyway, which is easy to get anyway because of the search effect of Nephthys. 3 Gold Sarc, obviously this is at 3 now, so we should take main advantage of this card. You can just banish Necroface and then banish up quite 5 cards of your deck, so you can just get 2 effects immediately if you're lucky. basically like a light swan. You have to hope that you get something good. Pot of Duality, 2 of those, because you don't really spec on your turn that often. Very rarely you do. The only time you do it if you got this one on the standby phase of your turn, and then you're gonna spec one from hand. But it doesn't really matter too much. It's very rare that happens. 3 Asymmetaphys. This one is a draw power card. You just banish one from hand, a Metaphys card. So that's the nice thing about this one is because you can banish any Metaphys card from your hand. So if you got a dead field spell because you've already got one in the field, you can just banish that, and then you can recycle that later on with Necroface anyway if you lose the last field spell, so it's fine. And it triggers, it's a mandatory trigger effect as well to make everything lose 500 attack on the field and defense as well at the same time, except Metaphys monsters, so that's quite good because mainly on the field you can have Metaphys monsters. On the opponent's turn you can interrupt your opponent by changing the battle positions. Free of the field spell because this one lets you normal summon a 5 or higher Metaphys monster, so if you brick you can just get the field spell by banishing this guy, get the field spell next turn, you can normal summon from hand, and then you can your opponent can't also interrupt your activations. So that's actually quite, I didn't know it has that effect actually, I just didn't know. It has the effect, that's quite a good effect. That's actually really annoying if I was playing against this deck. I can't interrupt my opponent if the field spell's on the field. 1 Dim Fissure and 1 Macro, obviously, because they're both at 1. Triple of the Waterfall of Dragon Souls, which is a really good Wyrm support card. So you basically, if you strap card, you search your deck for a Wyrm monster, so you can search this guy, this guy, this guy. And additionally, you can use it as a trade-in of as many Wyrm monsters from your field or hand. The field bit is quite nice because if your opponent tries to do something to it on the field, clip a battle for example, you can just make it tag out, and then you can just draw cards equal to the amount of ones you sacked off +1, so basically a trade-in. The downside is the trap card, and it also has to go to the graveyard as cost, so it doesn't work with Macro and Dim Fissure once again. But to add anyway, you don't really have to do anything except adding, so it works with Macro even if it's on the field, so you can add anyway. Last but not least, we've got the trap card, the basically dark magical circle for this deck. Every time you banish a Metaphys card in your possession, you can just banish a card in your opponent's side of the field, which is excellent. Continuous trap card, you can search it off Metaphys Nephthys, of course, and some Metaphys cards, so you can discard off Asymmetaphys, and then if your opponent also special summons on their turn or whenever, except during the damage step, you can spec a banished Metaphys, so that can be good for interruption because you spec this guy and you banish their field if you do that. As for the extra deck, we've got Star Eater because there's a level 4 tuner, you can synchro with Daedalus, but you rarely do that. And then we got Angel of Zero because we run Macro and Dim Fissure, so you can synchro with your level 4 and your Necroface if you want. You rarely go to your extra deck, you probably don't even need an extra deck, you can run with 0 extra deck cards, you can win games with this deck. Stardust, Scarlight, rank 8s, Alcei, Harbinger, Big Eye for rank 7s, rank 4s, Tornado Dragon, Utopia, super generic ones, Cowboy because I like Cowboy. Begushka, new card in Sacred Break as well, and 2 Link Monsters, Decode and Proxy. This is completely flexible, you can just change this, you don't really go into your extra deck in this deck. Once in a blue moon you do, but that's about it. And random cards I've tried to look up is Veritable Snow. It's quite good if you add cards in the graveyard, which is okay I guess, but if you do have it in the graveyard, you can just banish all your Metaphys cards in the graveyard and then trigger them all off, but you need to banish 7 cards in the field and grave, so it's a bit of a very big investment in a very slow deck as Metaphys. Light Ray Grepher, it's quite useful if you combine it with Ragnarok because you can make a level 8 or a rank 4 monster, level 8 synchro rank 4 monster. You spec it from hand by discarding a light monster, and then you can also discard another light monster to banish one from your deck. So you basically discard 2 of these guys and then banish one from your deck to get another plus. The only downside is you discard, which is not nice because you don't want them in grave. If it says banish one from hand to spec it from hand and banish one from hand to banish one from deck, or discard is a free off in this deck, but it's not, it's discard one. So unfortunately not a very good option unless if you really want to turbo out your level 8 synchros and level rank 4s. Of course we got 2 more Honest because it's at 3 now just to take the mickey, but the battle for this deck card is not really the priority of this deck. It's mainly to banish cards to keep on using your resources and stuff, and Omega because you can recycle your banish, although I don't really know what's the use of that. It's a level 8 synchro just for on the better ones, so you just put them in there, but there's not really much to consider in this deck because it's a very banish heavy deck. I'm pretty much running all the banish cards like Macro and Dim Fissure and stuff, so there's nothing really to consider, Necroface even. So yeah, that's about it for this profile of this Metaphys deck, upcoming one in Sacred Break, basically upcoming because these are all, look at all the old ones, you got 2 of them. Metaphys Arm Dragon, Horus, this card's amazing, I use it in Zephyrs, and Metaphysical. Oh, that's the card they don't. Yeah, this. Yeah, they messed up. This is the card that you don't really care about in this deck. It says it on all the effects, except this card, you can't search that card. Okay, so ignore that card, that's actually not a Metaphys card, they just messed up the wording on the cards. Alright, yeah, that's it for this deck. What do you think? See you in a bit.